Hi everyone, welcome to the ColourArte Winterfest educational event. If you're new to my channel, my name is Annalisa and I'm a ColourArte affiliate. During ColourArte's Winterfest educational event, you have the opportunity to enter to win a $400 ColourArte shopping spree. Each of the 15 ColourArte affiliate videos have a secret word or words hidden within their video. These words make up a secret phrase. All you need to do to enter to win the $400 shopping spree is watch all 15 affiliate videos to collect the secret words and put them together to make the secret phrase. Once you've put them together, go to ColourArte's website using the link in the description to send in your entry. In addition to the grand prize drawing, each of the 15 affiliate channels participating in this event will also have an individual channel drawing for a prism pour set of your choosing. To enter for a chance to win a channel prize, all you need to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. You have until midnight, January 27th, 2023 to enter to win. On January 30th, the winners will be announced. I've included all the details for this giveaway, along with all the colors used and my affiliate code in the description below. Additionally, I've added a list with links to the 15 affiliate videos that are a part of this event. I will be sharing my secret word for the secret phrase later in this video, so be sure to stay tuned. When I first started the project to make this piece for this video, I had a super grand idea to make a geode type of painting that wasn't necessarily a geode. I really like the way that layers of earth look, and I like the way that the layers on the geodes look. And so I was going for that type of look, but ultimately, I really wasn't trying to make a geode. I was just looking, that was the inspiration for the piece. So I have been making a lot of jewelry using my paint skins that I've been making, and I found that it's really awesome that I can take a piece of my painting and just the best piece of the painting can be cut down and put into a little bauble. And so that got me to thinking that it would be really cool if I took my paint skins and used them in the same manner on a canvas. And again, I really wasn't sure where I was going. However, I really wanted to add different elements and aspects into this particular project. And so I wanted to add crushed glass, and I was definitely using resin. So I had ordered a whole bunch of special products for this, and unfortunately, almost none of them came. And the ones that didn't came too late for me to really use them. So I decided that I was going to start this project using things that I already had. So I already had the silicone mat, so I made my paint skin. Next, I wanted certain colors of crushed glass. I only had one container of crushed glass, so I had to be very careful with it. So when you're making this, what you do is you put a tiny scoop of your primary elements pigment into the container, and then you put a little tiny splash of your art fluid, and then you shake it up. Once it's shaken up, you want to put it on the tray and spread it out as flat as you can to let it dry. And you don't need to use a silicone mat. However, it's really, really helpful to have a silicone mat when you're doing this, because it can be a little bit challenging to scrape it up from the tray. So I wanted to show you guys how it looks when you're gonna go in and scrape it off of the tray and break it apart. And unfortunately, I totally forgot to record that part with my first round of crushed glass. So this was actually my second round. And you're literally just scooping it up, and it'll come up in sections. Some of it will come up in little tiny chunks. As you're doing it, you want to just break it apart. When you're try to get crushed glass that isn't super sharp, because it makes it so you can actually break them apart after your pigments have dried onto your glass. So I'd originally ordered a resin board to do this project on. However, like I said, I ordered a bunch of products. Most of them didn't come. So I decided to just make do and use a 10 by 20 gallery canvas that I had on hand. And I also had just gotten a new paint airbrush from my husband for Christmas, and so I decided that it was the perfect time to try it out. When I first tried it, I wanted to kind of see how it worked, and so I decided to use it to wet the back of my canvas. When you're using a canvas, you want to make sure that it is super tight, and so wetting the back of it just makes it tighten right up. You want to be able to flick the canvas, and it makes a good sound. You can tell the difference. So this was my very first go around with this airbrush, and I would say you definitely need to use a mask anytime you use an airbrush, and I now see why it is that most people have a paint spraying booth, and I will be doing that in the near future. But for right now, I was just getting it done, and so I had really good ventilation going through my art room. So after I was done airbrushing on my bottom paint, I took my skin and I positioned it on the canvas, and I kind of got an idea for what, like, the general area that I wanted to put it in. And like I said, I was going for those layers that had more of like a I wanted the layers. I didn't necessarily want the cells for this particular piece. When you are gluing down a skin onto any surface, whatever you do, use a gel medium or something very similar. You do not want to use a water-based glue. Using a water-based glue, your paint skin or canvas will kind of ripple, and it just will not sit right. And so gel medium is the best thing that you can use for that. After that, I decided that I was going to go through and dry brush on some of my pigments, and it just is one of my absolute favorite things to do anytime I have a black background, because it just kind of gives it an added layer. And so I had used my Interference Violet to dry brush that on. So this is the point where I had gone in and decided to mix up all of my crushed glass, and I was trying to decide what it was that I was going to do. I started off with 2 different color mixtures and then decided that that wasn't what I wanted, so I wanted to mix them completely up. And I had watched another video. Keep in mind, I have very, very little experience with resin beyond resining my pores for finish work. Using crushed glass and resin is really new to me, but I had watched a few videos where they had used a hot glue gun to adhere their crushed glass and to put it in the spot they needed it in before they actually resined, and I found this to be the best thing ever. However, 2 words of warning. 1, never touch hot glue. That hurts. And this is something I already knew, but it didn't stop me from accidentally touching it. Multiple times, never intentionally. It was one of those, like, in the moment, use it, and I knew it ahead of time. I knew better, but I just figured I'd throw that out there. Just remember, glue from a glue gun is hot. Do not touch it. When it's hot, give it a few extra seconds to cool down. Also, as you're going, make sure to clean up the little stringy things that your glue will leave behind. There's nothing worse than getting to the resin part and then having to clean up the little strings from the hot glue. If you do shorter sections at a time, it makes it a lot easier to keep your strings down. For some reason with this particular hot glue gun, it seemed to not have nearly as many strings as like when I've used a hot glue gun in the past. I'm not sure why that is. I know this glue gun was special somehow. My husband bought it for a different project and told me it was a awesome hot glue gun, and it turned out he was right. It ended up working really well, and I had a lot less strings hanging off of my project. So next I went in with my resin, and I made sure to coat the living daylights out of any of my crushed glass pieces that were on my canvas. And I tried really hard to, my whole thought process was that I was going to just do the top, and then maybe after everything was all said and done, I'd go in and coat the sides with resin, because really I never intended to use an actual canvas for this. I had intended to use a board that was intended for resin. But that didn't work. The resin kind of seeped around the edges of the crushed glass, and so I just gave up and went full force trying to layer on as much resin over the top of my crushed glass, just to make sure it had a really good, strong connection with it. It's really important to go through and make sure you use your torch to get as many of the air bubbles out as you possibly can, but you don't want to leave your torch on your painting for too long. Like 2 seconds is all you want to put your torch near your resin in any given spot, and you want to let it cool down in between each of the passes so that you don't accidentally burn your resin. So I used a little tiny sewing pin to pick out little imperfections from my resin, and then I also use a lint roller. When you're using the lint roller, it helps if you brush it across your own clothes at least 1 or 2 swipes before you put it anywhere near your canvas. It just makes it so that it doesn't just adhere completely to your resin, but it makes things a lot easier when you're trying to control how much lint or dust or hair you have on your canvas. For this butterfly, this was not an originally intended item that I was going to add, but my daughter gave it to me for Christmas, and I love it so much. Isn't it so pretty? It was one of the coolest molds I'd ever seen. She got it for me from Julie Art on Instagram, and so it is a hollow mold, and if I hadn't have messed it up completely, the holographic part of it would have been visible at the very end. Unfortunately, I messed it up and had to fix part of it later. So with this, I watched the artist that makes these molds do
the butterfly outline using black, and it was the coolest thing ever.
I, however, do not have enough coordination to pour in a straight line, so
I put it in a Ziploc bag and I just piped it on like I was piping on icing, and that worked really well.
So again, I am really new to resin up until now. Really, the resin that I've done has been primarily focused on just adding a top layer on my paintings. So I'm still experimenting and learning, and one big learning thing that I found with this was to make sure that you do a really good job mixing your pigments. I didn't. So my first round of putting pigments on my resin mold, it didn't go so well, and so I did all this work to make my beautiful, beautiful butterfly, and I was extremely disappointed when I pulled it out. It didn't turn out anything like I had envisioned in my head, and that was horribly disappointing. I I learned my lesson, and I don't plan on doing that again. I also kind of feel like maybe if I had used a little less of or like changed around the way that I laid it down, it might have actually worked a lot better. But, it's all learning. So I'm just glad that it turned out the way that it did, because it actually gave me the opportunity to try out my new moon rocks that came in the mail, and they literally came like 3 days ago.
And they are mica flakes, and I got them in just like 3 days ago. And so I was super over the moon excited, no pun intended, because I had this brilliant idea to go in with my moon rocks and break them apart and put them in the lining, like in the little indented area, and make like a multicolored wing pattern. And this ended up turning out really, really, really fun. I don't know if you caught that. Secret word was candle. I really like the way that this turned out. It's something that I will probably do again intentionally. I wish I'd have started out doing this part intentionally, because this was possibly the prettiest thing that I've seen when it comes to resin molds. And I thought the holographic part was pretty cool. I really was bummed to be covering up the holographic part, because that was the whole reason my daughter bought me this mold, was because I was obsessed with the holographic part coming off onto the resin. When you are using moon rocks, they are mica, they're flakes and chunks of mica, and so they flake off, and you can get them to the right size for whatever project you're working on. And I just got mine as thin as I possibly could, and then I tore them into the right sizes. I was going in at the very end and just looking at what parts I needed to fill, making sure that they were all covered and that I didn't have any of my resin mess up showing up through underneath. I swear, some of the best things that I've made in with resin were accidents. I don't know why, but it always seems to be accidental.
So one thing that's important to point out is I really should have put some sort of adhesive down at the beginning of this.
I didn't. So because of that, I had to push my moon rocks down as I was resining. You can see here where you can see the hollow part of the mold going away, and it was so sad. I was really bummed out. But on the bright side, I really do like how it turned out. It wasn't at all what I was expecting, but it seems like the best things that I've made have all been accidents, so it is what it is. Anyway, this is how my piece turned out. I hope you like it. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already, please consider subscribing. Thank you. Have a great day.